Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, and as promised, I am back with card number 3 of these fun Halloween cards I made using the My Favorite Things Fab-BOO-lous Friends stamp set. I will have a link at the end of this video to the first video. That's where I show how I colored all the little images I'm going to use in a few minutes. Decided not to include that here because 1, it's redundant, and 2, it would just make the video too long. So after I'd done all of that, I die cut some Tim Holtz Distress watercolor paper with the MFT stitched collage frame Die-namics. And I die cut it with the textured side face up, just because I really like the texture when I'm sponging. I like how it kind of picks up the raised areas and whatnot. And I'm using some Distress inks to sponge these inner pieces from that die cut. And of course I'm doing Halloween colors. So I did Wilted Violet on one of the little rectangles, and then I did Carved Pumpkin. And then for my green, I started with Twisted Citron, and then I added just a little bit of Mowed Lawn just to deepen it that little bit. Made a huge mess. I should have done it over scratch paper. I have a big pad of it. And it's literally right behind me, and I didn't. So I'm getting ink everywhere. I'm getting it on my hands. So I just grabbed a baby wipe, wiped it all off, and I'm just using this remnant of, I was using a remnant of Post-it tape to hold these squares or these rectangles as I was sponging them, because you can get, your fingerprints will transfer and like move the ink around in that. So using just a little scrap piece of paper, some Post-it paper or whatever to hold things when you're sponging the entire thing helps. So after I had sponged all the ink on all of these, I laid them out, and then I sprayed them with my Distress sprayer with water, let that sit for 30-ish seconds, and then picked up that water with just my Chux. You could use a paper towel, whatever works, just to absorb that water, and then you get that fun splatter effect. Now, I pulled the actual frame piece out, and I'm going to re-put back all these pieces. So just inlay them back inside of this. And I'm going to hold everything in place with some micropore tape. And I'm going to press the micropore tape against my hand a couple times just so it's not as sticky. Micropore tape isn't nearly as sticky as regular tape, but I wanted to make sure it wasn't too sticky. I just want it to hold all this in place because I'm going to run this through my little Xyron Creative Station Lite, because that will apply adhesive to the entire back of this, especially that frame, because the frame is very narrow, and I'm going to adhere a piece of transparency to it. And I thought if I use this, it would just save me a ton of time and effort. So I had the micropore tape there to hold all these pieces in place so I can just quickly run this through my machine. So it's going to apply the permanent adhesive to the back of this. And then I'm going to rub this really, really well with my Teflon bone folder. I always press right against the very edge, because that's the thing. If you don't press the adhesive really well and go against the edge, when you pull off this, the disposable paper or the plastic sheeting, the adhesive can get a little gunked up on the edges. That was always my peeve back in the day with using the Xyron machines and everything. And then I realized if I press it in really, really well and go around the edges, that solves my problem. So I flip this over, and I'm doing the same thing, pressing like really, really hard with my Teflon bone folder, because you can see if the adhesive is starting to pull up, it's just not pushed into the paper properly. So was able to completely coat the back of this with adhesive. And then I had die cut another frame just from some heavyweight white cardstock. And then I just have some copy paper here, and I chose copy paper because it's just a little bit, lighter, because I just need something to hold everything in place, and I don't want to add a bunch of extra bulk to my card. And I'm going to adhere this white cardstock frame to the copy paper, and this is just going to give me a guide to lay all the pieces out and to create all my shaker sections, and it's all laid out so I'm not going to have to sit and fiddle because there's so many pieces to this. So now I can take all of these rectangles and just remove them from the original frame here, take off that micropore tape, and then I can inlay them inside this one that I'd adhered to the copy paper. So it just saved me having to fiddle and line things up, and good Lord, it would have taken me 10 times longer. So I can quickly pop these out, adhere them immediately. And then the actual frame itself, I want to adhere my transparency to, and same thing, I cut it to the exact same size as the frame, and now that it's got all that Xyron adhesive on it, I can just quickly lay the transparency down, and I don't have to fiddle with score tape or anything else, because again, there's all these little channels on it, and it would have just taken longer. So now I can just press my transparency directly to the back of that frame, and now I have my shaker window. So I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to create the actual shaker like channels, as it were. So I decided to use my little Darice foam strips, which are, as of right now, like sold out everywhere. Like Hopefully Darice makes a bajillion packages of these. I've been trying to get more of them. It was kind of hard to use them on this card because I'm like, I'm running out. But these are really narrow. You could use the 3M foam tape that I like to use a lot. You just have to cut it really narrowly. And I was having a hard time getting everything cut as narrow as I wanted. So these just made it easier. So I'm doing 2 layers of these as well because I want enough space for things to kind of shake around a bit. And I'm going around the entire frame. So that's also why these little foam strips were great, because they're so narrow and this frame itself is so narrow. And go along, and then that way each rectangle is going to be a separate little shaker area. So you could totally make it as just one if you wanted, and everything would shake between the whole piece, but I wanted all those separate areas. So again, set that aside. And then I've got my pre-colored little images from that Fab-BOO-lous Friends stamp set. They're pre-colored. I put the dies on it. I was about to die cut it, and then I realized, why don't I run it through my Xyron before I die cut it? So that's what I did. With the dies on it, everything, they're taped into place. I ran it through my little Xyron machine, as well as my little die cut sentiment that I had die cut from one of the Essential Speech Bubbles and then stamped and embossed it. So I'm going to carefully cut that out and just set that aside for a second. And then I've got my little die cut images, or my images with the dies over them and the Xyron on the backing. And I ran that whole thing through my Big Shot. Went through like a dream, and in the process, of course, pressed that adhesive in really well into the back of all of these. And then for this little sentiment, it looks like it was covered by that piece of white cardstock, but that's fine. That's actually what I wanted, because that means the adhesive is pressed to the back of that sentiment die cut here. So I'm just going around the edge with a marbling tool. You could use the Teflon bone folder, but I like, for smaller things like this, I like using my little marbling tool, just something really small to go right around that edge to really press that adhesive in. You pull off that backing paper, it takes away the excess adhesive, and then I've got my basically a die cut sticker. So I can adhere that to my transparency window there. That is why I chose to use the Xyron, because I knew I was going to adhere things on top of that transparency, and I don't like using liquid adhesive over a transparency. It takes longer to dry, it can ooze out, it makes a mess, whereas this is just easier. So again, I peeled off the transfer paper of all these images, removed the dies, and again, I've got all these, they're basically stickers, and they've got all their adhesive on them, and the backing die cut through the backing paper, which is fine, because I can just peel off the backing paper and then stick all these into place. So super simple, quick and easy. Love. So I decided to adhere some of them directly inside my little shaker channels just for a little bit of extra fun. And I kept holding up the window in front just to see how things were going to look and where that sentiment's going to go, because I don't want it to cover up like any of the main little elements. So I ended up only adhering the web and the spider, and then of course the little tombstone and the bat onto the inside. Everything else I wanted adhered on the outside because I didn't want anything else covered up. So I got all those adhered into place, and then I'm going to have to add all my little shaker elements. So I went through my sequin stash, of which I've got tons. I do have a video on my channel. You would just have to search sequin storage on Prairie Paper and Ink, and you'll find the video to this if I don't remember to link it in the little eye in the corner. And I'm using several different Pretty Pink Posh sequins in green, orange, purple, and black. And then I'm also adding some little the sparkling clear star sequins, as well as some of the sparkling clear sequin mix, just to give everything, you know, some shimmer and mix it all up a little bit. So pouring those into each different channel, and this is why I wanted everything separated like this with the foam tape, so that each color can have its own color sequin shaker and it's not all mixed together into one. It just kind of gives it that little extra something. So once I was happy with how much I'd added to all these channels, I can now adhere this frame, and that was where it came in handy to have that die cut frame to line everything up and put the tape on top of it. That made lining this up super simple. Got it all pressed into place, and then I've got my super fun little shaker card front, and now I can finish it off with all the rest of these little images. So I'm just going to keep peeling off the backing paper and then pressing them into place, and they'll adhere directly to that transparency window. So I'm going to create my fun little scene with all of these images. I just kind of went around and added them wherever I felt like it. I've got so many of them that I could use, and of course I couldn't not use all of them. So got as many as I wanted adhered to the front of the card, and decided to make those two, the little mummy and the little witch. They're holding hands. So once I had all of those adhered to place, I'm going to finish my card on the inside. So heavyweight white cardstock, cut to 4 1/4 by 11 inches and scored at 5 1/2. So it'll be a top folding A2 size card. And I used the same sentiment as I used on the other 2 cards just because I loved it. So I inked it up with Hero Arts Intense Black ink and then stamped that onto the inside of the card. And then I had my 2 remaining little images here, so I can quickly peel off the backing paper and adhere those into place. And then I realized these ones don't have little like hands or anything. So that little sucker, I'm gonna pull off the backing paper and adhere it to one of the characters on the front of my card. And then to adhere this whole shaker element to my card base, I just pulled out my Xyron Mega Runner tape applicator. And I'm going to go all around the edge, and then I also applied adhesive down the channels where I know the foam tape is. So that way there's a ton of adhesive on this so it will adhere and stick really well to my card base. I'm going to press that onto my card, and that finished off this fun shaker card. And like I said, at the end of this video, I'll put a link to the previous one if you didn't see it that'll show the coloring of these and plus the other 2 cards I made. This is so fun. And like the title of the video says, there is a giveaway. Xyron, I contacted them and they are generously going to give away a Creative Station Lite to one of my viewers. I will have the info in the description box below the video. It'll be on my blog. There'll be a link to my blog post. This is open to Canada and US residents only. I will do other giveaways that are open internationally, but all that info will be on my blog, so check it out if you are interested. Thank you so much to Xyron, and thank you so much to all of you that watch my videos, and I will see you all very soon in the next one. Bye!